What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the second album by Krizz Kaliko. Basically, this album is called Genius, and it came out in the summer of 2009. Basically, it was the follow-up album to his 2008 album Vitiligo, which came out in the spring of 2008. So that album was the introductory one. Krizz Kaliko had been featured on a number of Tech N9ne projects. He had done like hooks and stuff like that, but this is kind of where he was starting to get a lot more prevalence and that type of stuff. Like I liked Vitiligo, I reviewed it several years ago, but the thing about that album kind of was it didn't have much in terms of promotion. I want to say it was like years later that I found out that the Do It Like I Do It was actually the single from that. So I don't know if I talked about that being I don't know if I talked about Do It Like I Do It being the single with the review I did of the 2008 album. There is more promotion on this project, and the thing about Tech N9ne's label, the Strange label, and that type of stuff is they managed to put out albums so they don't have like the hindrances of typical record labels where they get pushed back and that type of stuff just because the singles don't do as well as they're supposed to or something like that. But as a result, like the promotion, you kind of have to know. It's one of those if you know kind of situations, and this is kind of the project behind it. Like Krizz Kaliko is kind of popular on Spotify, but it's interesting that some of his hit songs on Spotify just because they're kind of more people's choice and that type of stuff. Like I do feel like there are some good songs on here, but I noticed that some of the most popular songs like Bipolar and Genius, the title track, and some of those type ones are not actually the singles from this album. So it's just kind of that's the prospect of what goes along with it here. Where I do like all three of the singles. They're pretty excellent. They're definitely pretty crunchy, very similar to like Do It Like I Do It off of Vitiligo. I feel like these are just excellent kind of ones. And it's just kind of, the Tech N9ne appearances help quite a bit. He bolsters this album. E40's on here, which is pretty dope. I would have liked a better song with Scatterman and Snug Brim. But apart from that, I mean, this is kind of like this is a good album. I think probably I would have to say that Kickin' and Screamin' and Vitiligo are probably better, but I do like this album. It is a pretty solid follow-up. He didn't really get into like the sophomore slump, and I would have to say that there is some pretty good quality on here, but it's just not. I mean, it's gonna get like a good score, but I don't know about a rave score, but it is pretty like excellently produced in a lot of ways and does have some good caveats about this particular thing as far as that kind of goes. There's just some good stuff about it. So to kind of talk about the singles, the first single is Backpack, and this has like a very getting cranked kind of beat on here. It's a great song to get twisted to. It's a good ladies cut at that, and it's just a nice lean kind of crunk-like song. Definitely feel like this is kind of like a crunk-like beat on here, very similar to stuff Lil Jon kind of does, just with like a more electronic kind of edge towards it. Not quite as Lil Jon sounding, but it's got similarities to it. And it's just an easy kind of nightclub hit, and it has some good metaphors on here. I like when he says like she's got a backpack and a lunch pail too, so that's good metaphors to kind of get with that sort of concept as far as that kind of goes. Just an overall pretty glaring highlight. I'd say this is a great first single to kind of kick off the promotion of this project. I mean, this is kind of an overlooked song. I feel like just paying attention to the Spotify plays where this song only has like 600,000 hits, so it doesn't even have a million plays. So this is kind of the concept of just getting this some more light, just because a lot of these songs, with Krizz Kaliko having rocked with Tech N9ne for about 15, 18, almost 20 years, something like that. It's just kind of the concept that a lot of these are still kind of like in the relatively kind of off to the wayside and just kind of overlooked kind of territory. And it's just like, hey, this was some big internet rap back in 2009, 2010, early 2010s and such, but I still kind of look after it. There's a lot more pulling back of the curtains that needs to happen for this album just to kind of be able to say, because I think it's unlikely that Krizz Kaliko had albums that went gold and platinum and that type of stuff. So it's just kind of the concept just to be able to showcase some of this, because this is pretty, I mean, this is a good album. This is better than stuff that, can be mainstream that just would only have like 2 hits or 4 hits on there out of 18 or something like that. But this is definitely a good hit single. Happy Birthday is the second single. Good topic here. I feel like this is a good topic just to kind of be congratulative and kind of say happy birthday to folks you're hanging out with and that type of stuff. It's good. It's a good topic to kind of have for ladies and that type of stuff to say happy birthday to them. But it's a nice kind of tilted night venue kind of hit, and it's just an easy kind of social song, I feel like, and it's just got a glaring beat with some good vibes on here. Definitely feel like that's kind of the concept about it. Just kind of a glaring beat with some good vibes on here. This is I like this beat. Like I feel like Backpack and Happy Birthday both have some good beats on here, but this one I feel like Backpack and Happy Birthday both have some good beats on here, but Happy Birthday is a little bit more up tempo and a little bit more of a swinging kind of beat, just a little bit more rave and that type of stuff. But it's still pretty jarring and kind of just overall tilted kind of songs. I do like the concept of just being able to get that. These are both two good highlights as far as that kind of goes. And then Misunderstood is the third single, and this one's kind of more offhanded. It's interesting kind of get this one. It really feels like James Bond-esque or just something more like a Lounge Lizard kind of smooth operator kind of song. I feel like this song definitely like the lounge song, definitely smooth operator song for chicas and that type of stuff. Just has some after work hours kind of feel towards it, and it's just kind of after hours, maybe not 2, 3 in the morning, but after hours like 6, 7 p.m. Just kind of unwinding, winding down, that type of stuff. Just after work hours kind of gem, just an easy kind of highlight for that. So that's a good concept there. So that's the 3 singles. To talk about the rest of this album, yeah, this is a pretty good highlighted album. And there's definitely some stuff on here. Out of 18 songs, I wound up recommending 10.5. So there's 10.5 songs. I feel like it's good that Cut Calhoun is on here twice. I like that Big Scuba's on here. Tech N9ne's on here a number of times. And yeah, I would say all the Tech N9ne songs hit pretty hard. So that's definitely a good concept. E40's on here. The guests really help enhance the project. And the thing about Krizz Kaliko is the fact that he can kind of do like the Drake-like singing. He's kind of more alternative R&B, where I feel like he doesn't maybe quite have like the hit of like Best I Ever Had of Drake or something like that, but he is a pretty quality singer. And I would definitely say with songs like Butt Naked Fun, and there's another one that kind of Get Off and Butt Naked Fun. Those are two good examples of like kind of sultry, kind of smooth operator, kind of like R&B, alternative R&B type rap that proved that he can sing. And he wasn't really doing this on Vitiligo, it didn't seem like. So these are just some good examples of just kind of back in the late 2000s that this was kind of happening before like R&B rap kind of blew up with like Flo Rida and Drake and all those cats as far as that kind of went. So he was doing it. Second album, getting that sort of crunk type stuff on here. It was just some good concepts. So I'll go ahead and talk about like the 10.5 songs I recommend, and then we'll get to it. So basically they are Backpack, Happy Birthday, Dodo, Be Right Back, So High, Get Off, Misunderstood, She'll Do, Dead Wrong, Butt Naked Fun, and the Almost song is Humdrum. One of the best beats on this album is Be Right Back. This has a very dope kind of up-tempo guitar beat on here. It's a good song for some lyrical push, and by that I mean if you want to hear some folks rap real well, this is a good lyrical song, I feel like. It's an easy kind of song to just hear some folks tear it apart. Big Scoop and Tech N9ne are on here, so it's good to hear all 3 of these cats kind of tear this song apart. It'd be a great song to hear some folks like Eminem or like Jay-Z or some of those type folks, other lyrical rappers, tear this song apart. This would be a good choice to kind of have this. It's got a real excellent beat on here. It's a good album cut, and it's just very energizing. I feel like this is an energizing kind of beat that does some good stuff on here. Another nice song on here is Dodo. This is a pretty blurry, gleaming nightclub hit. I feel like this is a great gleaming song. Just reminds me of like a Tim Burton movie, just with its kind of electronic beeps and that type of stuff as far as how that one kind of goes. Really feels like something Tim Burton, late 80s, early 90s type feel. That this has like, really feels like a dark carnival type song, and E40 suits this song pretty well. I mean, I feel like Krizz Kaliko probably upstaged him. It's not one of the best E40 verses I've heard on this song, but he had enough swag and kind of charisma on there to not get wholesomely upstaged. But I feel like this beat just kind of suited Krizz Kaliko more, but they do both do good. I do like E40 was also on Krizz Kaliko's first album, so they do have chemistry to be able to do some of these. So they do have that, so that's good. Another nice one is Butt Naked Fun. This is like a very sultry, breezy, sexy bop on here. Definitely something Drake-esque. Definitely something Drake-esque, something in Krizz Kaliko's vein of doing it, though. It's kind of Young Money-like. Reminds me of the sort of stuff that like Bedrock would be like. Just something out of like... And it's interesting just to kind of say that this song actually came out before Bedrock and the Young Money album. So maybe like the Young Money song Every Girl was kind of somewhat around in airplay around that time. But it's actually interesting that Krizz Kaliko was on top of things to know about some of the trendiness of 2009 and early 2010 when this song had that sort of production sooner than Bedrock. But it's just an easy kind of ladies bop, good R&B like tune on here. It's just an easy sugary R&B gem. It's a real nice one, so that's a good concept of one. Another nice one is So High. This is like some sparkly, crunk-like nightclub fare. It's just a nice, good smoking song with an energizing hit beat. And it's good to kind of get this just because Krizz Kaliko or because Cut Calhoun and Tech N9ne are on here. It's just an overall, it's probably one of the better beats on this album. I feel like it's on par with Be Right Back. I mean, Be Right Back is probably way better, but it's just probably top 4, top 5 of best beats on here would be So High. Another manic song that's another hit song that has Cut Calhoun on here is She'll Do. This is like a very jivey, strung out kind of cut. Definitely like the kind of I definitely like the hype and high out of your mind feel of this particular song. Just a nice solid dance bop, and it's got some night venue glitz. So these are just some easy kind of hits for that. Just very good song to kind of smoke and get baked to and that type of stuff as far as that kind of goes. A nice one on here that's kind of overlooked. I would Dead Wrong kind of feels like an overlooked song, but this has a real nice commercial and breezy kind of beat on here. It's just a great promo tune for stepping out and kind of in like a dress to impress type feel. It's a good ruminating song to puff to and smoke to and that type of stuff. Just an easy kind of nice one. It's a short and brief song, but I do feel like this is kind of the Krizz Kaliko that could have had some commercial fare, which I feel like the singles did have commercial fare, but they do feel a lot more underground than this particular song, Dead Wrong. Just kind of the concept. And this is a lot more of a ruminating tune, so this is not really a crossover tune, but the production makes it feel like it is one. So that's kind of the concept there. If you liked butt naked fun and that type feel, there's another song that kind of has that particular kind of R&B rap type feel of it, and that's Get Off. This has very ecstasy like type feel about it, and it's a ladies cut. It's very Drake like, and it's an R&B tune with like some smooth winding down type feel towards it. Just an easy kind of winding down ladies track. This is very sing-songy. Krizz Kaliko just sings smooth vocals throughout the song, and Tech N9ne even sings a bit on here. So it's interesting kind of get this one. Two good winding down tunes just to kind of having that concept. These are just some easy breezy kind of ladies bops as far as that kind of goes. That's another nice one. So the almost song is Humdrum. This is like a very dreary, hazy kind of smoking song for With the Ladies. So it's a ladies song, but it's also a smoking song, which doesn't always happen. Sometimes you'll get ladies songs, sometimes you'll get ladies songs, sometimes you'll get smoking songs, but this one's kind of a mixture of kind of having ladies and smoking songs at the same time. So that's commendable for Krizz Kaliko to do that, just to kind of have that particular bop on here. It's kind of an offhanded song, though. I feel like the beat takes some getting used to. It's just very much like Bob Marley-esque and more reggae-induced, but I feel like the beat just did not quite hit as heavily enough. I mean, it's a clever concept. Do you like the concept of having two good whopping topics on here to kind of help amalgamate the song? But I just was kind of more on the fence on the beat than I would have liked, but it is a good song. I do feel like for the most part, it's one that I would listen to over songs that had less fare for me. So it's definitely kind of the concept, but trying to think if there's anything else I haven't talked about here. Yeah, so I think that about takes care of it. Out of like 18 songs, that's the 10.5 that I recommend to you. So to talk about these other 7 songs I didn't recommend as much, like I didn't really like the rock rap type feel of The Chemical. I don't know. I would see Krizz Kaliko should be able to do this sort of thing, considering that he's done shows with like folks like Cottonmouth Kings and those type folks and other rock rap folks as far as that kind of goes. But that one just didn't quite work as well for me. Choir Boy was kind of an awkward topic on here, and that one just didn't quite hit as home for me. I mean, that one. There's just kind of some ones on here that are just when you get Krizz Kaliko and he's not in a more sociable and kind of weekend kind of fare as much. Some of these songs just kind of like Krizz Kaliko's Ruminating is just kind of more focused on like personal and kind of more health related type stuff. And some of these topics like bipolar, Choir Boy, and like Love You to Death are just kind of concepts. Like Love You to Death is just kind of a song about admiring like a woman and kind of like not approaching her, but liking her and that type of stuff. So it's just kind of the concept of just getting some of these that they just kind of have like some of these when Krizz Kaliko is just not in like electric kind of turned up kind of mode. I mean, he definitely has like these night fair kind of beats. He's a pretty fun dude and has like a lot of these jivey kind of moments, but some of these more ruminating kind of moments, like Tech N9ne is a pro at ruminating. I feel like Krizz Kaliko kind of does it, but he just introduces like more kind of humdrum and kind of more personal topics that just don't quite hit quite as home as much. I mean, if you're looking for like if you're looking for cats to branch out and kind of have something relatable, I feel like Krizz Kaliko's relatability is probably more than Tech N9ne's, where Tech N9ne would just do like Eminem type ruminating. That's just kind of the concept about some of those. Genius and Chip Off My Shoulder are just kind of more down key kind of songs that just don't quite hit as hard for me. And then Get Your Life Right is just kind of like a motivational tune that I just didn't quite see as much as well with the motivation aspect of it. That was just kind of one trying to get you up on your feet. And this kind of one of the, got mouths to feed kind of scenarios, but this was not quite as recreational oriented as I'd like it to be. So that just kind of happens to be a thing. So it's just kind of like some of these just the personable moments just don't quite connect as well. There's just kind of, and the thing on top of that is just the fact that the beats on some of these that are kind of like more personable in that sort of sense, they just don't quite hit as heavily. Like Tech N9ne, at least on songs like Yada 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 or songs like that he would do that would kind of have like, not necessarily ousting kind of moments, are just not quite as Tech N9ne, at least on songs that he would do like Yada 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 off of Absolute Power and like Keep On Keeping On. Some of those type of songs would kind of be at least interesting productions, but I feel like some of these are just taken out of the ordinary and just don't quite stand up in like a sense of kind of having the relatability of the ruminating. As far as, I mean, they're relatable, but they just don't have the jive and the spark as far as being more recreational. I don't want to say just fun, because Krizz Kaliko is fun, but just the recreational sense of just having that spark as far as getting you excited and that type of stuff. So that's this kind of thing. But he does ruminate. That's this kind of thing. If you are looking for that sort of concept of just something to kind of muse to and just kind of kick back, cruise around your truck, that type of stuff, as far as just kind of having thoughts on your mind, bills to pay, that type of stuff, is just kind of in a different sense than how Tech N9ne kind of does it. But so yeah, I give this album me liking 10.5 songs out of 18. I give this album, me liking 10.5 songs out of 18. I give this album like a 6.75 out of 10. I feel like that's pretty good. I mean, that's pretty close. I mean, it's a little bit over half. I feel like I like enough of this project. I liked all three of the singles, but some of the album cuts kind of need work, and I feel like Krizz Kaliko probably could have taken a page out of Tech N9ne's playbook to make some of these not party songs kind of hit heavier. So that's just kind of the concept, where it's kind of more packed, maybe a song or two more, or at least they could have used like another party cut, something like that could have helped bolster it a little bit further. But I mean, it does. The thing about it is it's chock full of ladies cuts and weekend kind of cuts, but for some reason there's just some songs that just kind of feel like kind of this more dreary and kind of malaise kind of songs that just don't have the edge to them. That's this kind of thing. It's just kind of more dull blade kind of songs as far as that kind of goes. But yeah, so 6.75. The social score I'll give like a 7.752, because there's a number of hits on here. All three of the singles are well. There's a lot of good lady songs, a lot of good stuff like that. Krizz Kaliko has a pretty offhanded, abstract, and if he is bipolar, pretty riveting kind of personality for like that sort of concept. But I just would have to say it's just kind of, this is a pretty good riveting time. Lots of social kind of moments for stepping out. Over half the album has some good moments for a good jive of a time. It's just kind of the concept that the other side of the coin just doesn't quite work as well. So that's kind of the thing. But in terms of the future, like apparently, like Krizz Kaliko years ago left Strange Music, then he came back for a little bit, but I guess he left again. He's been kind of putting out projects independently. I need to check in. This is kind of me checking in with Krizz Kaliko again. I need to get back to some more of his albums, but I do have to say that he does have some more out that we're going to get to. So